What should I call you?
Hello and welcome. My name is Tyree and I'm your host for this session on the Mueller Neighborhood Association. On Saturday, we had a chance to talk with our council member in District 9, Qadri. So let's see what he had to say.
Asked me, what should I call you? And I said, well, if you're a friend of mine, you can call me Zoe. And if you're not, you can call me Councilmember Qadri. But I consider everyone in this, in this room friends and neighbors. So y'all can just call me Zoe. I want to make this very informal, very intimate, very interactive. So I'm just going to kind of introduce myself, our office, some things we've been up to, and then in the time that we have, would love to take some questions. I have to head out. What time is it? I have no idea what time it is. 10:05. Okay. I have to head out by 10:30. I unfortunately have three events back to back this morning, but want to be here for as long as I can. And we left a resource guide at everyone's table. It has our contact information for everyone in the office, as well as our social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and then a newsletter, which Caleb, who's here today, does the wonderful newsletter. So without further ado, I'll just quickly get into introductions, some things we've done in the office, things we're looking forward to doing, how y'all can get more involved, and then I guess we could just leave it the rest of the time for questions. But I'll start off from the top. Sarah Barge is our Chief of Staff in the office. Sarah previously was Councilmember Vanessa Fuentes' Chief of Staff. She thankfully came to our office upon the election. Melissa Beeler is our Senior Policy Advisor. Melissa's dedicated a lot of her life to equitable housing and transit policy. She did her master's at UT, was in Austin for a while, moved to Houston, and then when I got elected, I drove all the way to Houston to drag her back to Austin. We have Caleb Pritchard, who is so kind to join us today. Caleb does comms and policy in the office, specifically transit policy. He's previously spent another life of 4 years with Councilmember Harper Madison. We have Natalie Deller, who's also a policy advisor. Natalie was with Councilmember Poole before joining our office. And then we have Parisa Mahmood, who does constituent services and our digital work. She previously worked on now Congressman Kassar's campaign, as well as for Congressman Jamal Bowman out of New York. So really thankful to have the very dedicated and delightful team that we do. So far in the almost 4 months in office, we have thankfully passed 3 resolutions. I can quickly talk about those 3 resolutions. We've also co-sponsored 13. I don't quite remember exactly all those 13, but I do remember the 3 that we led. The first one had to do with making sure that when we look at historic preservation, we go about it from an equitable lens. Our second one, which just passed, had to do with the Mental Health Diversion Center, which is really important to me. As a candidate, we often talked about our unhoused community and how to better help them. And a lot of our unhoused neighbors are dealing with mental health and substance abuse issues. So from the county side, Judge Brown and Commissioner Ann Howard led the effort. And then from the city side, we came along and we led it from the city to making sure that in District 9, but throughout the city, the folks that are suffering from mental health illnesses that are from the unhoused population have a place to go. And then the latest resolution that we sponsored had to do with Rainy Street safety. A lot of you guys might have seen in the news, might have read online about some unfortunate recent deaths in the area. There have been folks who have unfortunately fallen into Lady Bird Lake, leaving Rainy Street and died. And that came to our office, I think like the second month we were there, right after the winter storm, and gentlemen had fallen in the water and died. And we later found out that, I don't know, in the past 5 years or so, it's been close to 10 people who have fallen into the water and died. It's a very dark area of the trail. It's right by an entertainment district, the only place in the city where there's an entertainment district right by a body of water. So we wanted to make sure we put as many safety provisions in. Right before South by, I worked with the interim city manager and the mayor's office to make sure we got temporary lighting and signage and fencing up. So if you go by the area, you'll notice some changes. But after the most recent death, we realized that it's just not enough. So they've started having folks patrol the area. We wanted to make sure it was park rangers, so it's as pleasant of interaction for anyone who might come across them. And then we're looking at putting up halo cameras and making sure that the bars in the area abide by certain safety guidelines, which the interim manager will be working with. We've heard of multiple reports of overserving of alcohol, as well as some druggings taking place in some of the bars. So we want to make sure we put as many safety guidelines in so that when folks go out, they feel safe, and there should not be a fear anywhere in the city that if you go out late at night that your well-being and your safety is at risk. I'm thankfully on three committees: mobility, public safety, and housing planning. The vice chair of the mobility committee, so we're very excited about a lot of the great work that we'll be doing. Outside of the 3 resolutions that we've already sponsored and that have passed, we're doing a lot of work that's going to be centered around housing and transit. I can't fully talk about it until it shows up on the agenda, but I'm very excited about the upcoming few months, especially as we near the little recess we'll have. We're going to make sure that we kind of ramp up and get as many things out as we can. And if we're not leading it, we're going to be a faithful ally to those that are sponsoring those resolutions. Outside of that, something that you won't see in terms of policy, but something that I thought was really important as a candidate and also as an office. We were a unionized campaign. Now as an office, everyone in our staff is part of AFSCME. I'm wearing their very cool jacket right now. But we saw musicians during South by bring up concerns about their lack of pay, and it's not just musicians. Truthfully, I later found out it's also folks who, I'm not talking about the big movies that premiere, like Air with Ben Affleck, but those smaller movies that premiere at South by, the lack of, they don't get any payment for it, and that's very unusual for a film festival to do. So raising their voices, and I'm actually having a meeting with South by this upcoming week, so wish me luck. But on top of that, making sure that we are as present of an office as possible is really important to me. After the winter storm, the ice storm, my chief and staff and I went out for 3-4 days in a row for about 12 hours a day, and we just drove around the district. Anyone who had emailed our office or called our office for a worry that they had, or a complaint or a concern, we wanted to make sure we were on the ground, so we took house visits. Whether it was a live wire, whether it was a tree through their roof or on their front lawn, we wanted to make sure that we were available, that we were accessible, and we also wanted to make sure that they didn't feel like they didn't have anywhere to go. For me, I love getting emails and phone calls, even if they're not happy emails and phone calls, because if I wasn't hearing from y'all, then I think that is what I worry about. So accessibility, whether it's through tweets or DMs on Instagram or us coming in person, is extremely important for us as an office. We've started I guess I'll call it a District 9 tour of sorts. You could call it a meet and greet or a town hall, but we're doing 8 in 8 weeks, which I realized we should have done 9 in 9 weeks, and that's my fault. It's a mismarketing opportunity, I guess. But we actually did we did one at Halcyon just very recently, but we still have 6 left. So even though we've gone through y'all's neighborhood, would love y'all to show up and just chat with us. Normally it's myself and 2 staffers, so it gives people an opportunity to ask questions, not only for myself but from staff that shows up. And I think that's all I have to say. Oh, I want to plug this in. We have thankfully gotten a lot of applications for boards and commissions. It's very important that we have a diverse array of applicants and commissioners, not only when it comes to age and gender and all that, and just various demographics, but also different parts of the city. Your very own Preston Tyree is a commissioner on the Commission on Aging. But there's a lot of positions that we still have available. So if you are interested in being appointed, please apply. If you have any questions on your sheet, the two people that are mainly dealing with the appointments are myself and Sarah. So feel free to shoot us an email. I just realized my email is not on here, but my email is very simple. It's zo.qadri, that's Qadri, at austintexas.gov. And that's it. So if anyone has any questions that I can answer, I'd be more than happy to. We have 3, so let's go 1, 2, 3.
So we're in the middle of Ramadan.
We are.
What's it like being the first? We're in the middle of Ramadan. What's it like being the first Muslim to hold a citywide office in Austin?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I am very exhausted, if I'm going to be completely honest. But what I often tell folks is that I get a lot of energy from being in the office. It's when I get home and I'm just waiting for the time where I can eat is when I kind of crash. But as cliche as it might sound, being in the office and doing the work is what gives me energy. But I do understand from a representation point of view the importance of it. I never thought I'd run. I never thought I'd be in office, if I'm going to be completely honest. So me being here, I just want to do good work for 4 years, and if I do a good enough job, my hope is to gain the trust of my neighbors to do another 4 years. And after that, I'd just probably like to retire into the sunset from office. To me, this is my dream job, to serve a community that gave me so much as a teenager when I moved here, and has kind of always held me up and been there for me. So I don't respectfully to the people who fly to DC or work at that awful building in downtown, the Capitol, not City Hall. I just have no interest. I'm so happy, representing y'all. But my hope is that other folks from my community and also other communities that don't have representation on the dais decide to run and hopefully are able to represent their community on the dais. I think we had, you have another question? I think there's 2 and then 3.
You mentioned in your opening remarks that storm we had.
Correct.
And one of your council members has raised the question of possibly starting to bury
Correct.
the lines. Can you tell us any more about that?
Yeah, I know that was something that myself and Councilmember Vela had expressed, and then when it came to in the form of a resolution, it was Councilmember Fuentes and Ryan Alter who have brought up a resolution for us to, as a city, to look into the feasibility of it. It's going to be a long process. It would be an expensive process, and I think that's why it's important to be very deliberate and not rush to a decision. But I think it's something that I think it's worth looking into. If we look at around the city where we suffered the least amount of damage and where folks were best, I guess, equipped to take the ice storm that was, it was parts of the city that had buried their power lines. So I think it's something that's worth looking into. We're probably going to get a feasibility report of that back, in the upcoming months, and then we'll go from there. And I think it's going to be important for us to be as transparent with y'all as possible. So, yeah, that's where we are right now with that. And then I think there's
sorry,
yeah.
I just came in. I apologize, I was late, but
No worries.
I didn't get the email address that you gave
Oh.
because I wasn't ready with a pen.
Yeah, no worries. Did you have one of these sheets?
No.
Okay, I will also get you. I will have someone give you. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. The email that I just gave, if you want to write it down, is Zo. That's Z-O.
D-O.
Yeah. Dot. Q-A.
Q-A.
D-R-I.
D-R-I.
Yeah. At austintexas.gov.
Okay. Thank you so much. My name is Taylor.
Oh, nice to meet you, Taylor.
Swift, S-W-U-F.
Oh, yeah. It's nice to meet you, Taylor Swift.
But I do outreach, and the last meeting, there was an emphasis about what can Mueller do for outreach. And as I came in, you were talking about the marginalized communities, and there's some great places like Big ATX. That's right there at University Baptist Church, where they have adult daycare
Yeah.
And they need volunteers to come there and speak to the persons who are there. It's a daycare,
Yeah.
but it's for adults who are mentally challenged. And the VA is having a big Cinco de Mayo on May 3rd, and they're trying to get volunteers. If you have time in your day to just go out and be a volunteer, you can check with Anthony Davis,
Uh-huh.
anthony.davis@va.gov, and he can sign you up, and you can become a volunteer veteran and get an ID and everything.
Yeah.
You always want to have a military ID, you can get one. Volunteering for acknowledgement of the history of those who are Hispanic.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And if you don't mind, if I could grab that before I head out, that sheet. And lucky enough, what we do in our newsletter, which we send out every other Friday, is if there's any community events, we put them in the newsletter. So, for example, Clarksville had an event. Their neighborhood folks had sent us something. We posted that in one newsletter. I think Hyde Park's done the same. So we'd love to kind of blast that on, Caleb already grabbed it, in our newsletter so folks can know about it, and if they choose to volunteer, can volunteer at it. I don't have my calendar on me, but if I can, I'd love to come out as well. So thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing that.
Actually, there's one more group that I was trying to represent.
Oh, yes.
I guess if you go to a meeting, you bring your own microphone, right? There's
There's a microphone.
Blue Apple Express.
Uh-huh.
And Blue Apple Express is the part of a program called bruisedapples.com, for those who like to look up and verify. Bruisedapples.com is trying to recognize marginalized communities, and one of those happens to be people who are seniors.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not OLD, I'm JOY, which is just older youth.
Yeah.
But I promise you, there are some people who had that birthday that they still buy stuff, but they can't lift it and they
Yeah.
can't organize it. So I'm trying to start a group that will help lift spirits. It's called Sophie's Sing-Alongs, and we do it
Okay.
every second and fourth Thursdays and Sundays at Wildflower Terrace. We want you to come over and sing along and lift some endorphins.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I'd love to do that. I came to the National Night Out to the Wildflower Terrace, so I really enjoyed that. I think we have 1 and then 2.
My one.
No, I believe she had raised her hand first, and then you're 2.
I was just wondering if the city is coming up with any ideas to deal with the homeless crisis, the lack of housing,
Yeah.
in a quicker way. We have some great initiatives going through some groups, but we just need to double or triple our efforts, and I don't know if you're hearing anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, our office has been working with Diana Gray, with the interim city manager, and also with the mayor's office. I mean, a big thing that happened, that came to attention in our office earlier on was there's a large encampment in Bowling Creek in the green belt. So myself and my chief of staff actually went and toured that green belt encampment with folks from the Bowling Creek neighborhood. I know the mayor's staff had also gone. So we're looking at seeing how we can help that population. But truthfully, this our crisis with our in-house population is that it's a crisis, and to say otherwise or to take it lightly is, I think, a disservice to that population, but to the city as a whole. So we're looking at things. I mean, you might have seen the shelter in downtown, the Salvation Army closing down, which houses a lot of women and children specifically. We're thankfully able to get about a month extension, but we're working kind of behind the scenes to see where can we put these folks in a place that's more permanent. We've seen urban alchemy kind of take over for front steps in the Arch in downtown. So it's just important for us as a city, I think, to work with all these organizations, but as an entity in itself, a very large entity, to be very proactive. So we're working on stuff, and I think our office, especially being in District 9, having downtown, having a lot of the shelters, is trying to take as much of a lead as we can in working with folks in public health and public safety. I think we have a question there.
We have an election coming up on
Yeah.
May 6th, and I think it's confusing to the community about what the differences are between Prop A and Prop B. And do you think you could summarize them, or is that illegal?
I don't think I can tell you my point of view because that might come off as campaigning. Is that correct? I'm still new to this. So what I will say is that I appreciate that that plug-in. There is an election coming up on May 6th. Early voting starts end of October and goes into. Sorry, I'm sorry. I don't know where my brain is. I think I'm going off of last cycle. It starts end of April and goes until early May. There are two big props. It's Prop A and Prop B. I can just kind of list the facts. Prop A was brought to you by Equity Action. Prop B was brought to you by the Austin Police Association. They're both very similar in language, but Prop A goes a little bit further in terms of accountability and oversight. If they both pass, they both fail. There is no accountability and oversight. So it doesn't matter if Prop A got 99% and the other Prop B got 50.01% or vice versa. If they both pass, they both fail. So I would just encourage folks to read about both and to educate yourself. There's a lot of events going on around both of the props, but since I'm here in my official capacity, I can't really campaign for one or the other.
But you're saying they would cancel each other?
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So if Prop A passes and Prop B fails, then we have Prop A. If Prop A fails and Prop B passes, we have Prop B. If they both fail, they both fail. But if they both pass, then they also both fail. So.
Then why should we vote? If they cancel each other out.
Only if they both.
Only if they both win. Only if they both get over 50%. So that I would just stress to read about both and maybe see who's supporting both. Oh, and I am almost on time. And then kind of make up your mind.
So, Councilmember Qadri.
Yeah.
You are on your deadline. We're not trying to throw you out.
No, of course not.
We're trying to keep you on track. I know Caleb is getting answers over here. And let's give him a big hand, please.
Thank you. The last thing I'll say is that I'm really thankful, excited to be here. I hope to come to as many neighborhood meetings as I can, and if I can't come, at the very least send staff. We've done some events in the neighborhood. We'll continue to do events, but please don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, I think silence is what scares me, but getting animated emails is what is so exciting. So please keep reaching out to our office. But thank you all for having me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Asked me what should I call you, and I said, well, if you're a friend of mine, you can call me Zoe.
Okay, so that was Zoe Qadri, our council member in District 9, and looking forward to having him back and talking with him some more. You can reach out to him at zo.qadri, Qadri, at austintexas.gov. So let's support him and see if we can help him out.